All right, welcome to day 3 of Unit 14. This is our last unit. We are down to our last 2 videos. Today we're going to be looking at the Middle East, so let's just go ahead and jump right on into it. All right, so looking at your Middle East here, you know that there were mandates that were established after World War I. They were put in place, and these had been previously, these had been areas that had been controlled by Germany previously. So these became mandates of Great Britain and France. Great Britain's mandates included Transjordan, okay, Transjordan's right here, Palestine, and Iraq, okay? And France's mandates were going to be Syria and Lebanon. So at the conclusion of World War II, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan, which had formerly been Transjordan, they became independent states, meaning that they were no longer under the control of the British or the French, but they were now their own countries. Palestine became part of the new independent state of Israel. So let's talk about Israel for a bit. So Israel is located, it's indicated on the map by the red area. It's bordered by the Mediterranean Sea, Egypt, and other former mandates. Originally, it had been settled by Arabs who were also Muslims, okay? So if you remember earlier in the year, we talked about the Zionist movement in the 1800s, and this was when the Jews began leaving Europe and coming to Palestine to make it a Jewish homeland. After World War II, even more Jews moved into this area. So this ends up building up a lot of tension between your Muslims and your Jewish people who were living in the area. There's fighting. There's a lot of fighting that goes on in this area. It still goes on today. But eventually, this fighting led to UN-sanctioned partitions within Israel. So meaning that they were divided off, okay? This doesn't stop the fighting, though. In the 1940s, Jews and Palestinian Muslims fought the Arab-Israeli War. Now, the Arabs and the Israelis, they fought, I think there were 4 different wars that they fought within a short period of time. The Jews end up winning this war, and as a result, many of the Palestinian Muslims were expelled from the area and forced to become refugees. So as a result, as a response to this, the Palestine Liberation Organization, also called the PLO, was formed, and at that time it was led by Yasser Arafat. The main goal of the PLO was to recapture Palestine for Arabs, okay? Now, we cannot talk about Israel without talking about this amazing lady right here. This is Golda Meir. She was born in Russia. She grew up and was educated in the United States, and when she was in her teens, she ended up, her family, they returned to Palestine. So upon returning to Palestine, Meir became the leader of the Zionist movement, and in 1969, she became the first female prime minister of Israel. She did everything in her power to try to make peace with the Arabs, but it just was not possible. The differences between them just could not be settled. In early October 1973, on Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement for Jews, this was the 4th war between Arabs and Israelis. It began when Arab forces attacked the Israeli troops. Now, they were taking advantage of the fact that it was Yom Kippur, and that many of the Israeli troops they were away at their posts observing Yom Kippur. So the Arabs were able to make major advances. However, the Israeli troops, they did end up being victorious over the Arab troops, but it was at the cost of many, many soldiers' lives. Meir also sought the assistance of the United States, and eventually President Nixon did provide weapons to them. Golda Meir managed to maintain a strong relationship with the United States, and she did end up stepping down as Prime Minister of Israel in 1974. Egypt had also been under British control for many, many years, and like most British-controlled areas, Egypt wanted independence from Great Britain. Gamal Abdel Nasser was the Prime Minister of Egypt from 1956 until 1970, and he had 2 goals for Egypt. The first was to get rid of all foreign domination within Egypt. He didn't want Egypt to be controlled by any other nation. He also had a great desire to modernize Egypt. And a couple of his accomplishments include nationalizing the Suez Canal. So by doing this, he was able to take the money from the tolls that ships would have to pay to go through the Suez Canal, and then pay for the Aswan High Dam, which was used for irrigation, and it was also used for hydroelectricity. So those were 2 of his major accomplishments while he was in office. All right, so all of these colonies are wanting freedom from their parent country, which in many cases was England. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of England from 1979 to 1990. She was the longest serving Prime Minister, and she was very supportive of capitalism, meaning that she was open up to free trade and less government control or regulation of businesses. She kept a very close relationship with the United States, and she backed our foreign policy in many different situations. She was not afraid of using military force if necessary, and this is how she earned the nickname the Iron Lady. So, because the world at this point now is made up of mostly independent countries, interdependence is a must. Countries must trust and defend and depend on one another as well. There's a variety of ways how that happens. The first example is through OPEC. OPEC stands for the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, and you can see here on the map all of the countries that are a member of OPEC are there. Okay, these are the founding members. So what OPEC does is they set oil production levels and they set oil prices. So these are the people who determine basically how much gas is going to cost, how much oil is produced, how much oil is available to the rest of the world. They have a lot of control. The second group that we're going to talk about is going to be NAFTA. Okay, NAFTA stands for the North American Free Trade Agreement. It includes Mexico, the United States, and Canada. NAFTA is a trade organization that eliminates tariffs and goods traded between these three countries. Our next one is the World Trade Organization. It is made up of 164 countries as of July 2016, and what they do is they supervise the rules of trade between its members. It negotiates trade agreements, settles trade disputes between its members, and it also helps developing countries when possible. Our last organization is going to be the International Monetary Fund. It was created in 1945, and it is, quote, an organization of 189 countries working to foster global monetary cooperation, secure financial stability, facilitate international trade, promote high employment and sustainable economic growth, and reduce poverty around the world. Now that comes directly from their website. So their website was actually very user-friendly, very easy to read and understand when you look at it. It breaks down like who the countries are, what they do, what their job is, how they go about doing these sort of things too. But basically what it does is it works to establish exchange rates between countries, and it gives loans to developing countries when necessary. Okay, so that basically wraps up all of our stuff on the end of colonialism in Unit 14. We will have one more video. This one will be about terrorism and how that has played out in our world since then. And then after that, we are done with our lectures. We're going to be done with our videos. So make sure you have your notes. We will have time to do your summaries when you come into class, and I will see you then.